Wow. I just interviewed Dr. Doug Graham. Amazing, amazing, amazing. He did a really good job explaining how he was able to reverse Alzheimer's in 3 of his patients, and also how diet can protect your brain. You're going to want to stay to the very end. This is an amazing episode. I learned a lot, and I think you will too. Thank you for joining. I'm Dr. Josh with Alzheimer's Breakthrough. Peace and plants. Dr. Doug Graham is a lifelong health and fitness enthusiast, a chiropractor, and one of the world's leading voices in the raw food movement. He is best known as the creator of the 80-10-10 diet, a lifestyle built around eating 80% of calories from carbohydrates, 10% from protein, and 10% from fat, with an emphasis on fresh, raw, whole foods. He has coached Olympic athletes, dancers, and professional sports teams, helping them reach peak performance through plant-based nutrition. His book, The 80-10-10 Diet, has become a cornerstone in the raw food community, influencing thousands to embrace fruit as the ultimate fuel. Beyond food, Dr. Graham teaches natural hygiene, emphasizing sleep, sunlight, exercise, emotional well-being, and lifestyle choices as the foundation of health and longevity. Hi, it's Dr. Josh. Welcome back to Alzheimer's Breakthrough. And what if the key to preventing Alzheimer's was not in a pill bottle, but on your plate? Today's guest, Dr. Doug Graham, challenges everything we think we know about nutrition, brain health, and longevity with his groundbreaking 80-10-10 approach. Welcome, Doug Graham. Thanks for coming.
Oh, bless your heart, Josh. What a treat to be here with you today. It's really special for me.
Awesome. And the reason I really wanted to have you here is this is a podcast on Alzheimer's prevention, reversal. And when we talked earlier, you shared with me that you actually had 3 cases of people you've helped with Alzheimer's. So I'd love to jump in and start there if that's okay.
Yeah, it's a great place to start, really. I mean, it's in my world of seeing patients, not that many come specifically with Alzheimer's, but virtually every client that I've ever worked with tells me they feel more switched on. They feel like their brain and their tongue and their thought processes are more coordinated. And that, to me, gave me the initiative, if you will, to say, gee, I wonder what would happen to somebody who's having trouble in that area.
That makes sense. Do you want to describe what you did for each one of these patients?
Sure. Actually, with each of them, I used a custom program. It's always unique to the individual. People have likes and dislikes, allergies and sensitivities, and but essentially what I did is I used that 80-10-10 approach, which is a diet that's predominated calorically by simple carbohydrates found in fruits and vegetables, and then about the same amount of protein as everybody else eats. It's hovering around 10% of calories from protein. I think the average American eats around 11%. And then the difference between 80-10-10 and other approaches is that the dietary fat percentage was considered very low. I keep it in single digits where possible. A diet of strictly fruits and vegetables will be about 7% of calories from fat. And then adding in some nuts and seeds, avocado, ackee, durian, whatever fatty fruits or nuts and seeds, that can boost it up a bit, go up to 8, 10, 12, something like that. But relatively low compared to a standard Western diet, which is about 48% of calories from fat. And And I found it interesting that the 5 or 6 studies that I've read now that conclude that low-fat diets don't help anything, all of them use numbers in the 30%. So they all said, oh, well, a diet of 38%, a low-fat diet of 38% of calories, or 35 or 33, that's about as low as I've seen. All of those, I would say, are incredibly high, since none of the animals that are anatomically and physiologically built like us eat more than 10% of their calories from fat.
That makes sense. So I think what you're saying is that the clinical studies you've seen haven't actually tested a truly low fat 10% or 7% fat diet.
To my knowledge, it's not been done.
Okay, so these are 3 case studies or case reports, but do you want to tell us about each one individually, or were they? I know you personalized. How did you personalize, and kind of what was the course and things like that?
Well, the first one was the mother of a nurse who worked for me, and she had been living on her own and started declining mentally, just declining to a point where her daughter, the nurse's sister, started checking in on her every single day, and then started spending all day with her. And she continued to decline until she got to a point where they said, you know what, this is going to require 24-hour attention. The other sister couldn't do it. The nurse that worked for me said, I have to quit and go live with my mom. And I said, fine. 18 months later, I saw her at an event and said, oh, Mary, how, I was almost afraid to ask, how's your mom? And she said, oh, mom's fine, actually. She's living on her own now. And I said, what happened? She said, well, she had progressed so much that she was no longer choosy about what she ate. Oddly enough, what she had wanted most of all, she'd go to the grocery store when left on her own and filled her grocery cart with candy bars. She really wanted sugar, like intuitively, she really wanted sugar. And instead, Mary just gave her fruits and vegetables and said, look, like if you want to eat, this is what you eat, fruits and vegetables. So she gave her nothing but fruits and vegetables. And within a period of 6 months, she went from not being able to be, you couldn't leave her alone for a minute. She'd get in trouble. She'd wander off, to a point where she was living on her own, and Mary just didn't have to be there anymore. I mean, it was incredible incline, if that's a word that's ever used in mental faculties. It was incline. The next one was a mother of a client of mine. And she goes, oh, my mother's getting terrible and I don't know what to do for her. And it's really getting scary. It's so depressing. I said, have her come live with you. I'll tell you what to do. And we can just watch her really closely if she's with you. If she's home on her own, I can't really even tell her what to do anymore. So the mother came to visit. The daughter was already eating a fruit and vegetable based diet. I said, look, you give your mother absolutely nothing but fruit and veg. We're not even giving her avocado at this point. We started out with just fruit and veg, because even a little bit of fat in the bloodstream reduces oxygen flow to the brain. I mean, this has been chronicled.
Right, and causes inflammation and things like that.
Yeah, for certain. So we just put her on fruits and vegetables and nothing more. And she was in a bad way. Is all I can say. You know, she was in a bad way. I mean, I feel for these people. And I said, well, let's start giving her things to do. First of all day long, let's give her things to do. I wanted her to sit in front of a piano and just push the keys, maybe even learn a simple song like ABC or whatever the simplest song is we can play, and chopsticks. We'll give her that. Let's give her some kids' puzzles. If she can do anything with words, and memory, like repeat the word you just said, or just some simple things just to use the brain. And within a month's time, at first the daughter was very upset. She goes, nothing's happening, for about 2 weeks. And then she goes, something's happening. She's no longer getting worse. She's actually getting better. Like, I look at Alzheimer's like a runaway train. First it has to slow down. The decline has to slow down and then stop and then go back up. And it's a long way back. By 30 days in, she was obviously on the mend. And after 50 days, she went home to go live on her own. It was just that straightforward. And they just keep going like that.
Beautiful.
They really just keep going like that. I just recently spoke with my closest cousin. I mean, he's been my dearest cousin since I was a kid. And his wife is getting to that point where can't be left alone and just doesn't remember more than about 3 or 4 minutes worth of anything. And it's just the start. We all know it's just the start. And I told my cousin, I said, look, if she wants to talk to me, if you want to talk to me, I'm more than happy to explain how this is done, how to be happy on fruits and vegetables, make it exciting, make it enticing, make it delicious, make it interesting, make it different every day, make it all kinds, make it very little work. And he goes, well, I just don't know if she'd do it. And that's a very common reaction. I'm sorry to say, people are really looking for the pill.
One magic pill is going to fix it all.
Yeah, give me the magic pill. You have any of those handy?
Oh, wow. No, I'm not aware of one magic pill that's going to fix everything.
Me either. Me either.
Wow.
But I am aware that, as I say, I put a world-class athlete on a fruit and vegetable diet. He's an Olympic sprinter. His reaction times went from, well, we're measuring it like between seeing something and how quickly could he move his foot, between hearing something and how quickly could he move his foot. It was at that time when the starting gun, the starters used to stand in front of the sprinters, so you could see smoke before you heard sound. Now the starter is behind the sprinters, so they don't get that visual clue anymore. They have to wait till they hear. So we tried it both ways, but he actually cut his reaction time in half. And I'm going, this is brain function. And I just look again and again and again at the coordination and nerve function as a great indicator, really, of brain function.
Sure, and one you can easily quantify. So,
and one I can easily quantify. Exactly. Thanks for that.
Wow. So going back to the examples, in the 3 cases, were they able to stay on?
Oh yeah. No,
okay.
they got into such solid ground. Yeah, it wasn't like, what was that movie? There's a Robin Williams movie where the guys regained function, but then they lost it after a couple of weeks. Anyway, so yeah, maintain function, maintain clarity, maintain full individual freedom.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's great.
Never saw a return of decline.
That's great, because I was worried with that first example that once the patient went back home on her own, she would just get into candy bars again.
No, but she really walked to a grocery store and filled a cart with nothing but candy bars. Like, she emptied the shelves.
And I'm laughing because that was my fantasy as like a little boy.
I got to do that once. I got to eat unlimited chocolate bars. And having done it once, I really never wanted to do it again. The idea was better than the reality. No, the cool thing is by the time people go through a few months of eating fruits and vegetables, they come to like it. And once a person realizes that they have some control over their life, that they have some responsibility, but even more control over whether they're sick or not, over whether they maintain individual freedoms, whether they become independent or not, whether they're in diapers or not. Most people choose the freedom. And they go, you know what? I really like fruits and vegetables. And when I was a teenager, I saw a television show about weird diets around the world. And it's funny how things stick in my head. But the comment, I don't remember anything the commentator said, except for one sentence where he said, when a person goes to a new environment and starts eating spiders on a stick or whatever it is, lizards or something, it just didn't seem to matter. Weird diets around the world. He said, when a person goes to a new environment and starts eating a new diet, within 2 years of changing diet, they'll typically come to defend it as the best diet. It just sits well after about 2 years. And a lot of that has to do with microbiome. A lot of that has to do with the feeling of how does the diet sit with you. A lot of that is truly microbial. Can I get used to a new diet or not? But for me, switching to fruits and vegetables as my own experiment, I just found the results so fantastic that there was no way I was going to give that up. It kind of reminded me of the Joni Mitchell song, when you ain't got nothing. When you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. I know that wasn't Joni Mitchell. That was probably...
I don't know either.
Big Brother and the Holding Company, Janis Joplin.
Nice.
Okay, so...
Wow. So,
there you go.
So you mentioned that each of these 3 cases were also personalized. How did you personalize? Is it that some people like different fruits and vegetables than others, or that some people are different weights than others, or how did you personalize?
Well, that's a great question again. So I'm thinking of cows in a field of grass, and there's cows on the flat ground, and there's cows up in the hills, and the ones up in the hills are doing more work, and the little cows, and there's big cows, and the big cows are doing more work still than the little cows, and it's not that different than cars. The more work a person does, the more work I do, the more fuel I need to take in. And so for starters, the amount of calories consumed has to be customized in order not to lose or gain weight. But even more than that, I've spent a lot of time in Costa Rica and studied an animal called the sloth down in Costa Rica. They're fascinating to me. I've liked them since I was kids, and Ice Age helped. And so it turns out that the sloth in Costa Rica eat more than 100 different leaves, which are plentiful in the rainforest.
Sure.
But any individual sloth rarely eats more than 25 leaves from different trees, which means that 2 sloths can be living right next door to each other and not be competing for the same leaves. This is, you could say, sloths eat leaves, but you could say, let me customize to the unique requirements of the individual. Some people eat apples and get a bellyache. Some people eat apples and it's the best thing ever. Some people don't like papaya. Some people find they get wind if they eat figs or dates, and other people don't. And so there's a lot of personal preference, both in quantity, quality, and actual type. I've found I can eat red bell peppers anywhere in the world except Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, that gives me an instant stomach ache.
Interesting. And unfortunately, in Costa Rica, it's hard to find organic food. Do you think it might be from a pesticide
It's
there?
better than it was.
Okay.
I can get organic red bell peppers, and they still tear me up. It just instantly, my stomach goes sour. And I know one other guy who has the exact same reaction. So it's not just me, but okay, so it's generic. It's fruits and vegetables, anything I'd be willing to eat raw. And still, it's got to be custom. I've worked with an athlete who, if he got celery, take him to the hospital, anaphylactic shock. Another guy with avocado. I mean, I've heard of it with strawberries or tomatoes or a few other things, but I've seen a lot of weird ones too. And certainly with each client, it's well worth checking for sensitivities. I was on the airplane home from Michigan, and the announcement came on early in the flight. If anybody has any nuts with them, please don't eat them, because there's somebody allergic to peanuts. And I'm thinking, wow, right before I left, I took a little Ziploc bag with walnuts. Why would a person allergic to peanuts react to my walnuts? Okay, I respected the request. I didn't eat the walnuts. But everybody's got certain unique capabilities, digestive preferences, and so in that sense, it's custom, as opposed to a different program for everybody. It's really just fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are human beings' natural food. If I got put in a zoo, and this experiment was done, by the way, in England some years ago, they put 6 people in a zoo, and the zookeeper says, okay, what do I feed these people? I've never had a people in a zoo before. And he goes, there's a science known as comparative anatomy.
Right.
And comparative anatomy has a bunch of rules. And one of the rules is that all animals that are anatomically and physiologically similar thrive on similar foods. It's called the rule of similars. And so all the animals that are anatomically and physiologically similar to us are called anthropoid primates, monkeys without tails, essentially. We're a tailless monkey, most of us. And all of them live on fruits and vegetables. The interesting part of that, though, is the arrangement. Those animals can be arranged by order of intelligence. The least intelligent eats the most vegetable matter. The most intelligent eats the most fruit matter. They can also be arranged by genetic similarity to human. The one that's furthest from us eats the most vegetable matter. Turns out it's the same order. And the one that's closest to us, sharing more than 99.6% of our genetic makeup, eats the most fruit matter. Do they all eat a few bugs? Yeah, they do, inadvertently and sometimes intentionally. But then I've never seen a gorilla in a grocery store, or a orangutan or a chimpanzee. They don't have access to unlimited food. A lot of times they're hungry, so they will eat pretty much anything they can, but the predominance of their food for all of them comes from fruit, except for the mountain gorilla. A 500-pound gorilla up out on skinny branches, that's just not going to work.
No.
But in the zoo setting, they're given fruit. It's just they can't get it out in the wild so much.
It makes
But in
sense.
a zoo, even there, they're given fruit.
So how did these humans in the zoo do?
Well, that was really weird. One of them had arthritis and that went away. One of them had heart disease and that went away. A couple of them were overweight and they lost all their excess weight. At least one, I think 2 of them had very high blood pressure, and that completely resolved. I mean, they went in as, I'll call them average people, and they came out as super healthy, and they were super happy. And turns out they all loved fruits and vegetables by the end. At first, it was a shock because who's used to that? Any change. I think it's part of human nature a little bit, in resisting change. But we adapt really well, and especially when change is forced on us, we adapt incredibly well. We're very creative that way. So they did incredibly well. That wasn't even good. Part of the experiment wasn't it was supposed to be done as a social experiment to see what would happen socially. And they did well in that regard too. But the fact that they all improved health-wise was just a side benefit as far as anybody was concerned.
That's very cool. Yeah, I think the brain is designed for you to crave whatever food you normally eat. And you're exactly right, because the brain is also trained to crave salt, oil, and sugar. If you cut that out of your diet, you may have headaches or withdrawal symptoms for a couple weeks even.
Well, I'll throw in a couple of thoughts there. First of all, my understanding, and Josh, you're the brain expert, but my understanding is the human brain believes whatever it hears repeatedly, whatever it sees repeatedly, whatever it senses repeatedly. Repeat seems to be the key. So I keep seeing fruits and vegetables in my house. I think of fruits and vegetables as very normal. I remember the first time my dad had a garden, and it seemed he cut up the grass in order to put in a garden, and it seemed abnormal. But I'll tell you, after a couple of months of gardening, food coming out of the garden seemed really normal. It didn't take long at all. The other part of that is, wow, what a thought that fruits and vegetables actually could be our species-specific diet, in which case going towards fruits and vegetables becomes, as the expression goes, a natural. It's just a natural thing to be drawn in by fruits and vegetables, by the colors, by the smells, by the textures, let alone the nutritional value. Without exception, every nutrition course I ever took, the teachers mentioned that fruits and vegetables are health foods. So, I mean, these are universally accepted as our species-specific diet. And anything else, I mean, we can acquire the taste over time. Whereas when I'm picking food, I'm aghast, I'm repulsed by food that has fermented on the vine, like a tomato that's turned to a liquid with a thin skin, and I touch it and it breaks, and it's fermented. People can even learn to prefer fermented food, but it's not our natural inclination.
Interesting. What about, you're not mentioning grains. I'm assuming you don't include whole grains with the fruits and vegetables.
So in my own diet, I eat that which I can eat raw. In a field of wheat the size of Kansas, I'd starve before I got out. Can't eat raw wheat. In fact, there are very few natural grain eaters in the whole world. I think like field mice or something, but very few natural grain eaters. In a field of mangoes the size of Texas, I just would never leave. But grains, I'd want to get out because I'd be really hungry, and I think I'd starve before I got out if the field was big enough. I've tried. There's a lot of wheat and rye and barley grown in my local area when I'm out hiking, and I've tried it. And it's got so much fiber. It's really sharp. It cuts my mouth. Don't have the digestive enzymes for breaking down the oligosaccharides that are in there. By the time I heat it and destroy all the heat-sensitive nutrients, the B's and C's especially, I'm in pretty serious trouble. I think I'm nutritionally digging a hole with every bite. And for myself, I found out I needed about 2 hours extra sleep when I included grains in my diet. and I do just fine. I'm very happy to have those 2 extra hours for other things.
Creatine is back on people's minds. You've probably heard, not just because it helps you build and maintain lean muscle, but because it may also be beneficial for the brain. That's why I'm so glad my friends over at Organifi have created this awesome new product, Creatine Cherry Chews. People have been taking creatine for a long time now, but it's mostly been professional bodybuilders and elite biohackers. Now, Organifi has transformed it into something that everyone can take every day and really should. Organifi always goes the extra mile in finding the finest ingredients on the planet, and the same goes here. They've sourced the best, most bioavailable creatine monohydrate, which has been shown to help you push yourself further with less effort. Studies show that it also helps support cognitive function and brain health, which makes taking creatine a great choice for everyone. Plus, Organifi has added tart cherry, which is actually a superfood loaded with antioxidants and helps your body recover quicker. It's really the perfect combination. These 2 ingredients come together in a seriously yummy, soft chew gummy, and now it's convenient to take your creatine anywhere you go. You might be thinking, but I've heard that gummies are just loaded with sugar and rarely contain an effective dose of the intended ingredients. And if we were talking about one of the competitors out there, that may very well be true. But with Organifi, you get an effective 3 grams per serving, which you can adjust to your preference, and you're not getting any added junk like artificial sweeteners, flavors, or tons of sugar. I know you'll love the Creatine Cherry Chews, and I know you'll love this too. I'm going to save you some money. Because you're listening to this right now, you'll save an extra 20% off their already low price. Just go over to Organifi.com/Dr. Josh. That's ORGANIFI.com/DRJOSH and grab your Creatine Cherry Chews. Remember to use my discount code Dr. Josh at checkout to save an extra 20%. Again, that's Organifi.com/Dr. Josh and use code Dr. Josh at checkout to save 20%. And how do you advise or help patients when they're making this transition? Because I agree with you 100%. If you're already eating fruits and vegetables, then it's normal, your body's used to it. But like we mentioned, the transition period can definitely be difficult to the point where you're like, no, I need this patient with a family member who can monitor them and make sure they actually do what we want them to do. But obviously that transition period can be difficult for a week or even a month. How do you help?
So for people who are transitioning, hopefully before they get to the point of full-blown Alzheimer's, like they see, oh, this runs in my family. Well, actually menus aren't an inherited quality. I've been eating like my grandma, and grandma ended up with this, and this. I'm probably going to end up the same thing simply due to my foods. Really, every patient deserves being met where they are. My approach, I like to think of it as hand-holding. I'll do a daily contact with my clients so that I'm going to make a program for them that's simple enough at first so that it's not too much to juggle. It's kind of like juggling one ball at a time. Like, okay, I can do one ball. Now what? Okay, well, here's another ball. Let's juggle 2, and then eventually 3, and then start looking at lifestyle factors. And then there's 4 and 5 and 6. But it's a matter of meeting them where they are. And oddly, a lot of people say, Doug, like you did this long transition from standard Western diet to a raw food diet. I tell people it was 17 years. And throughout that transition, I had no idea what I was heading towards or why. I really didn't know what the end goal was in any way, shape, or form. And so basically every step of the way, I thought I'd arrived. And I've been asked more than once, how come I don't take people through that transition since it worked so well? I mean, I've been eating raw food now since the late 70s. I'm perfectly happy with an all raw diet. To me, cooked food seems abnormal. And what can I say, So the odd part, as I mentioned, the odd part is most people think taking that transition would be a great way to go. And I think it's more like a light switch. It's either on or off. I'm either doing drugs or I'm not doing drugs. I'm smoking cigarettes or I'm not smoking cigarettes. I'm an alcoholic or I'm a teetotaler. I'm eating cooked food or I'm not. And over the last 45 years coaching people, I've found that a higher success rate and a far better recidivism rate, people falling back onto other programs. The best results I've gotten have been going from basically from all to none, from a cooked food diet to a raw food diet. That transition is actually the easiest, the fastest, the most successful, and the longest lasting. Now, do I have to show people how to do it? Yes. Do I have to make it easy for them at first? Does it take a month or more to figure it out? Yes. And if I can jump back 2 statements ago, the idea of the addictions and the salt and the oil and the sugar, I have my own perspective on this, and correct me if I'm wrong. Every cell of the human body is designed seeking to thrive. Seek to thrive is how our genetics are built into every cell of the body. Therefore, every tissue, every organ, every system, and every organism alive seeks to thrive. Okay. If indeed it's set up by nature to seek to thrive, physical addiction is not possible. All addiction is either psychological addiction or psychological addiction to the shift in behavior that accompanies use, to the shift in sensation that accompanies use, to the shift in emotion that accompanies use. And none of it is truly physical addiction. So even what we call the detox symptoms of physical addiction, I look at those as being all emotional, in the same way as a kid having a trauma or having a meltdown on the in the store floor, and they're just having a tantrum, and they're having experiences. They feel fully real, but those are emotional. Those are not they're not physically addicted to whatever toy they wanted or whatever it was. That's an emotional thing. When we see kids and we take their phone away, or adults too, I feel it when somebody interrupts me. If I'm playing and somebody interrupts me, I already feel it. Like, oh, my candy's been taken away. So, and these, I'm going to call all of that into the heading of psychological addiction. So the sugar, salt, oil, this is just training. People have just been trained. And anytime something new is imposed, there's some resistance. I feel like I'm playing with an unfair advantage, however. Fruits and vegetables have all the colors of the rainbow. Cooked food is brown. Fruits and vegetables have every flavor imaginable. In fact, most perfumes and most flavors that are used in food cooking, they use fruit and vegetable flavors. Herbs and spices, perhaps, but they're using stuff from that I would normally and naturally eat on a raw food diet to flavor the cooked food. And then I've got texture and mouthfeel and variety throughout the year. And heck, the same exact grapes grown in different locations taste different. Everybody knows that a homegrown tomato tastes better than the same commercially grown tomato.
True.
So every time the amount of variety offered one year I kept track. I don't typically keep track, but one year I kept track. And in the course of a year, I ate 200 different fruits and 50 different vegetables. I'll stack that variety up against anybody's on a mainstream diet and how much variety they typically eat. In fact, they rely on a McDonald's cheeseburger tasting the same no matter where they go. They rely on Heinz ketchup tasting the same no matter where it is, whereas I never get two tomatoes that taste the same.
Fascinating.
So
So
I do
let's
see more variety. I recommend simplicity at mealtime, variety in the overall diet.
that makes sense. If we could talk more, because many of the people listening to this are going to say, "But wait, I was taught that sugar, even simple sugar, is one of the causes of not just diabetes, but also type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's. And, I'm trying to prevent or reverse Alzheimer's. So I don't understand what you're talking about. You're saying eat 80% carbohydrates, but I was taught that carbohydrates lead to Alzheimer's. So where's the disconnect here?
Well, the disconnect is and was handled really well in 1959 in the Journal of the American Medical Association. There's an article explaining the cause of diabetes. Back then, they weren't yet talking about Alzheimer's. And they explained that the problem is not the fact that blood sugar rises after eating anything sweet. The problem is not the rise in blood sugar, but sustained elevated blood sugar. Sustained elevated blood sugar leads to a lot of different problems. Certainly Alzheimer's and type 2 diabetes are among them. And the disconnect is that, like fuel in my car, I have to use fuel before I can add more fuel. But there's always fuel in the tank. The fuel that every cell uses is called glucose. 100% of the cells in our body are fueled by the simple sugar called glucose. 90% of the cells in the human body are also fueled by fructose, especially when in combination with glucose. In combination with glucose seems to be the key. That's where the athletes find that they get better performance. Neither one on its own does the job, but in combination, they do a much better job. We see it in health as well. So, the fact that all humans always have a blood glucose level. There is no zero blood glucose. On a diet of pure blubber, people would still have the same blood sugar as everybody else, as long as they didn't have diabetes. And on a diet of pure protein powder, people would have the same blood sugar as everybody else, as long as they didn't have diabetes. And on a diet of nothing but, hate to say it, but some kind of a bag of sugar, people will still maintain the same blood sugar level. Now, does blood sugar go up when I eat 15 or 20 bananas? Absolutely. There's only 5 grams of sugar in my entire bloodstream. When I eat 20 bananas, that's 400 grams of sugar. Those 400 grams of sugar first go through my digestive tract, second right into my bloodstream. That's a massive overload. My blood sugar levels rise like crazy, as they're supposed to, because my muscles and all my organs need that fuel. So as long as the fuel has somewhere to go, like, oh, I just walked for 2 hours, now I'm coming back and I'm going to eat my bananas, the blood sugar will go directly to the muscles and become glycogen in the muscles. There's got to be a place for the sugar to go. So on a high-fat diet, why I mentioned the Journal of the American Medical Association in 1959, there was an article that explained that the lower the amount of fat in the bloodstream, the better the body was, the less insulin required to move glucose from the bloodstream to the cells of the body. which means that my blood sugar goes up when I eat, but it comes right back down again within a fairly short period of time. And as far as I know, I feel normal the whole time. Now, can I eat too much sugar? Yes. Too much implies a problem. So if I eat till I fall asleep, that was too much. If I eat until I have digestive problems, that was too much. If I eat consistently too much until I'm just gaining weight endlessly, that's too much. But my weight's maintained itself for 40 something years. And oddly enough, even with powerlifting, instead of running as my primary sport, I've doubled my strength and maintained my weight. My weight changed. I'm sorry, my weight did not change. It was just stable. So it wasn't getting bigger. It was just getting stronger. So the disconnect lies in people are thinking on a 45 or a 48% of calories fat diet that all that sugar would be a problem. And they're right. When I drop the fat down, I must replace it with sugar, or I'm going to lose weight like crazy, uncontrollably. I'm going to have no energy because the fuel of choice is sugar for every cell of the body. I must supply sugar. So hence the whole concept behind 80-10-10 was that a minimum of 80% of my calories comes from carbohydrates, preferably the simple carbohydrates found in fruits. A maximum of 10% protein and low teens, really 10% fat for ideal performance, but low teens is certainly acceptable. A maximum of in the teens for fat. And this allows me somewhere between 80 to 90% of my calories coming from sugar, which is exactly what the human body requires. Just like I put 100% of the fuel that goes into my car is gasoline, except here in England, it's petrol. And in Germany, it's benzene. But it's all gasoline. They just use a different name.
Wow. So, and just for clarification, my understanding is that if you were to take your current, let's say currently you have 7% or 10% fat in your diet, if you started bumping that up to 20% fat, 30% fat, 40% fat, the extra fat would actually start gumming up your insulin receptors in your
Yeah, that would
muscle.
be the first thing that would happen. Health decline is predictable. The type of health decline is genetic predisposition. So some people will go towards heart disease with that same gumming up problem. Some people will go to Alzheimer's with the same congestion in the bloodstream up in the brain. Some people will get digestive disorders because it's just more than the body's not designed to handle it, and they've got a sensitive digestive system. Others, as you say, they're gonna have trouble processing insulin sensitivity declines. So whereas my insulin sensitivity is over 100, a person with serious diabetes could have an insulin sensitivity of 1 or 2, which has to do with how many grams of carbohydrate will a unit of insulin carry across the membrane. So mine's over 100. But I've seen people come to me with 1. And the cool thing is, in a matter of 4 days or less, they can boost that up into, well, in about 24 hours, they can boost it into double digits. Within 4 days, they can usually get it up over 25 if they're type 1 diabetic. And if they're type 2 diabetic or Alzheimer's, they're going to boost that insulin sensitivity up over 50 within 4 days, which is, I mean, that's brilliant.
That's amazing. So fill us in, because one of the big differences I see between 80-10-10 and, say, the standard American diet is my sense is meals may not be as filling. You may have to eat more frequently during the day. Has that been your experience?
No,
Interesting.
that's not been my experience. I, I, I think I had a built-in advantage right off the get-go. which is I enjoy eating volumes of food. I ask people, how many slices of pizza would you have for lunch if you knew dinner wasn't going to be for 6 hours? And they'll tell me 2 or 3 or 4 typically, whereas I would eat 2 pizzas. I enjoy volume, I really do, and so I'm sort of made for a raw food diet in that sense. Um, I think eating more than 3 times a day for most people is a disadvantage. It's basically saying that they didn't eat enough at the last meal. Uh, and, and so people hear me say, oh, I'll eat 12 bananas for lunch. And they go, 12 bananas? That's so much bananas. And I go, well, you have to understand I'm a reasonably active guy. I carry a bit of muscle, having been a gymnast back in my day. And I'm not suggesting that a lady who's half my size eat the same amount of food as me. She might well eat only half as much. And that would be fully understandable. 6 bananas doesn't sound as daunting. But they have to eat basically it's calories in, calories out. I eat about 3,000 calories a day, spread through breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When it's even, that would be 1,000 calories a meal. And that keeps me quite satisfied. When I undereat, I'm going to be hungry soon. And when I overeat, I'm not going to be hungry for an extra couple of hours. But the thing that does change is what's known as colon transit time. So whereas the typical American colon transit time is somewhere around 48 hours, on a high fiber diet, that drops to somewhere between 12 and 18 hours, which means that by the time I'm sitting down to breakfast, I might still have dinner inside of me, but lunch from yesterday it's found its way to the toilet. I've had plenty of clients who tell me they only go to the bathroom once a week. And they said, my doctor said it's normal as long as it's regular once a week. And I go, no, that's not normal going to the bathroom. That means they've got 21 meals inside of their system at all times, whereas I normally only have 1 or 2 in my system at any given time. By the time I have 3 meals, I'm starting to feel a little backed up. I've done something funny. Usually it means I didn't get enough sleep and my system's just gotten a little sluggish. So that happens more quickly. But as far as eating, the way I describe it for newcomers is there's a difference between there were 2 restaurants where I grew up, and one, there was 2 brothers and they'd had a fight, and one opened up an all you care to eat restaurant, and the other one opened up an all you can eat restaurant. And there's a gap. There's a gap between all you care to and all you can. Like, all you care to is very, very, it's not a contest.
No.
It's socially acceptable. I just had all I care for, thank you. Yeah. Whereas all you can eat is sort of a challenge. I'm going to go in there and show them how much I can eat. And for beginners, I'm going to say split the difference. Maybe hedge towards all you can. And over time, both of those numbers will shift towards eating more food, simply because the 8 to 12 glasses of water that are recommended for most Americans are in my food. The water's already in there. The large amount of fiber that we're told is actually normal for us, which is why, like, breakfast cereals have fiber added. The normal amount of fiber that's naturally keeps it. What fiber does is it optimizes nutrient uptake. So the fiber's already in my fruits and vegetables. In fact, animal fare has no fiber. So when you eat no fiber, you get constipated. When you have fiber, nutrients, food all moves through and is absorbed properly. So in that regard, no problems. It all moves through really well, but it's more volume. An apple is way more volume than a dehydrated apple. And there's a company, I think it's called Juice Plus, where they take out the sugar, they take out the fiber, and they take out the water, and then they give you what's left in a pill. Well, it's just a little itty bitty pill that used to be an apple. So when NASA was first talking about putting people in space, they tried having astronauts eat nothing but supplement tablets. And what they found out was that the guys were just always hungry because it just wasn't enough volume. Volume is one of the cues that triggers satiation. Certainly various nutrients are also part of the clue, especially sugar, which is why desserts are typically served last in restaurants. When I don't get sugar, I still want sugar. So you want dessert at the end of, no matter how big the meal was, there's still room for sugar. And everybody's mother told them, don't eat sweets before the meal. It'll spoil your appetite. And I had to really bite my tongue rather than ask my mom, why else in the whole wide world would I eat if it wasn't to spoil my appetite? Isn't that the whole point of eating? Spoiling my appetite?
Right.
Yeah, but I want you to spoil your appetite on the food I make, not on whatever sweets you're eating, which I could understand. But eating the sugars first is actually a really smart move. It's far more satiating. It means complete control and perfect weight management all the time. That just gets so easy. And I can say from my own personal experience, two things used to happen to me. One was I would forget words. It was on the tip of my tongue and I just couldn't get it out. I would play Jeopardy and I knew the answer, but I couldn't get it out as fast as the Jeopardy guys. The guys on TV got it out way faster than I could. The second thing that would happen is I'd be talking about something and then meander off somewhere, fracture, digress, and eventually go, what was I talking about? I can't remember. There was a point I wanted to make. What was it? And I forget. And when I went raw, that just was like night and day. It stopped happening. So profound mental clarity. I had never been able to learn foreign languages, and all of a sudden I could learn Spanish like it was easy. I couldn't remember long sequences like a 10-digit phone number. All of a sudden that got easy. Remembering codes and phone numbers got easy. Over and over. No more lost. My whole vocabulary came back to me. And it was that mental clarity. I mean, my own mother went down the road towards Alzheimer's. And she actually, for a period of time, was staying with me. And I put her on fruits and vegetables. And when she got to me, she was in no position for living on her own. And by the time she'd stayed with me for 3 months, she went home and lived on her own. She took care of herself. So, I mean, I've seen it happen again and again, not just my own clarity, my own family. My sister, bless her, she's 77, sharp as a tack, just totally sharp as a tack, just eating fruits and vegetables and perfectly happy with it. It took some doing. When she first went on a fruit and vegetable diet, she told me about it one day on a phone call. And I said, wow, she said, I'm on a new diet. I go, what is it? She said, well, I have fruit for breakfast and fruit for lunch, and then I have a big salad at dinner time. And I go, wow, it sounds a lot like my diet. Are you doing this for your health, or is there some other reason? And she goes, oh, no, I'm doing it to lose weight. I mean, I hope I die before I start to like this diet.
Wow.
But she actually got to a point where she loves it, and now it's her preferred diet. And the sharpness, the clarity is, I mean, I'm proud of her. Sometimes she's too sharp.
Got it. All right. And shifting gears a little bit, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting, how many meals a day should you eat? Yeah, and I mean, we could spend a whole hour just talking about water fasting,
Sure, I would love to.
and maybe we'll
I'm
do that.
doing one. I'm leading a water fast January 25th through March 7th. It'll be 3 to 4 weeks of fasting, 3 weeks of eating. We watch people's health return like nobody's business, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, I don't call it intermittent fasting. I call it satisfying eating. So when I eat until I'm satisfied, I'm not hungry again for a good long while. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I do want something to eat. Most of the time when I wake up in the morning, I don't want anything to eat for at least 3 or 4 hours. I'll get 16 to 18 hours in between dinner and breakfast anyway. I think that, and I'm working on a list. Josh, I'll enlist your aid in this, but I'm working on a list of various conditions, common health knowledge, and things like that that no longer apply on a raw food diet. So a lot of things that, like this intermittent fasting being a good thing, actually, that's not what the studies showed. What the studies showed was that being obese is a bad thing. They didn't prove that eating less makes you live longer. They proved that being fat makes you live shorter. And the same deal with intermittent fasting. This is an approach that was implemented as a way of helping people manage their out of control obesity, because there's no way to make a cooked food diet work. It can't work. The volume is too small. 3 Happy Meals, I might be happy, but by then I've over consumed in calories.
Right.
So I'm not happy even after 3 of them. And a lot of the things that are now viewed as, oh yeah, this is a really good thing, intermittent fasting, biohacking, all of that stuff is unnecessary and really doesn't apply. The idea of eating more omega-3 to counteract the excess of omega-6. Well, how about if we just don't eat so much omega-6? Then it all balances out the way it's supposed to, and mental clarity comes, and the anti-inflammatory happens, and the flow of blood happens, so we don't see so much clots. And this is just another one. For me, typically, I'll eat 3 times a day. I'm happy with 3 times a day, unless I'm in a sedentary period of life, and occasionally that happens. Typically, no, I'm active one way or another, and then I want to eat 3 times a day. When I was younger and really training hard, periods of time where I'm eating 4,000, 4,500 calories a day, I would eat 4 times a day. And when I'm working with pro athletes eating in excess of 6,000 calories a day, they're very often eating 6 times a day. Somewhere between 1,000, 1,500 calories seems to be about the human digestive limit. So we just can't, and in that sense, we got to build the frequency up a bit. But otherwise, for people eating 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 calories a day, 3 times a day is more than enough. A lot of them actually go 2 times a day is enough.
Got it. And then I understand when you first wake up, you're not normally eating. What about how long from your last meal to when you go to sleep? How does that work?
I have tried a lot of experiments in this regard, and eating late was a habit for me that I had to consciously put some attention on. I feel my best. I have the most energy. I sleep my best. I need the least amount of sleep. I wake up feeling more refreshed. It seems like the earlier I eat, the better it is. I'll allow 6, 7 hours in between finishing my dinner meal and going to sleep. A minimum of 3 to 4 hours, but more commonly these days, 6 or 7 hours. I finish eating at 6 at night. I might not go to bed till midnight or 1 o'clock. And then wake up in the morning, typically not eating. It's rare that I'm eating anything before 10, and it's often 11 or even 12 before I'm eating. So I'll get close to 18 hours.
That's great. So between 6 p.m., your last meal, and if you go to sleep at midnight, during those 6 hours, do you feel hungry?
Not at all. Not even in the slightest. I'm not even thinking about it. I really indulge in my dinner meal. I have all the fruit I want before I start my dinner meal, which is almost as much as I had at lunchtime. I've learned, like, I'm perfectly content to eat 4 or 5 mangoes before I tuck into salad or any other kind of a vegetable dish, whatever I happen to make that night. And I know that I didn't eat enough fruit when I'm looking around for sweets in between meals, when I finish the dinner meal and I want to have something heavy or rich, um, when I'm thinking it's time for dessert after dinner meal, or when anything starchy even looks remotely like food rather than the paste that it really is. I mean, wallpaper paste is nothing but flour and water. Pasta is nothing but flour and water. It's pastry is nothing but flour and water. So for me, no, I'm perfectly content when I've had enough fruit. And like he's mentioned though, even after doing all of that, people will still say, "But isn't that too much sugar?" And the odd thing is, I'll reiterate it, that no matter what I eat, my body converts it into sugar. Whereas there are essential fatty acids that must be obtained through the diet. There are essential amino acids that must be obtained through the diet. Nature made no provision for human beings to foul up the blood sugar issue. They go, carbohydrates, glucose and fructose are so essential that no matter what I eat, my body will convert it into glucose, leaving there are no what are called essential carbohydrates, meaning I must get them from my diet. No matter what I eat, my body's going to make carbohydrate out of it, and it's going to make glucose out of that. The most efficient thing is just start with glucose.
It makes sense. Keep it easy. Um, Shifting gears here, you what what excites you the most? What research have you seen, or maybe been exposed to uh, breaking research? What what excites you the most about, you know, developments that we might see in the next 6 months?
Two things. One is the medical side. And I find it very exciting from the medical side that people are developing patches. Some of them get grafted in, some of them go on the skin, that make up for anatomical shortcomings. So, for instance, the islets of Langerhans, or whatever they're called these days, I know they keep changing
In the
the name,
pancreas, yeah.
that allow insulin to be produced in the pancreas. Some people don't have those. They're born without them. They're type 1 diabetic. I know I've got people on 80-10-10 who work as chemists who are developing a graft that can be placed anywhere in the body. It could be placed in the arm, a little patch, like it looks like a piece of screen. And they put that in and they produce insulin. And that to me is pretty fascinating stuff, that could be done. That could be done for B12, for intrinsic factor. That can be done for other factors, that for various hormones within the body as well. So that, I mean, we live in pretty special times. You and I would both be not seeing the world as clearly
Agreed.
without this
Yeah.
little medical intervention, which I think is there's a lot of diabetics who would be dead. So those kinds of things I think are way cool. But for me, the number one outside absolute top is human greatness. And for me, almost any form of human greatness, including most of all mental faculty, that I'm seeing just exceed my wildest dreams. It's happening when I put people on fruits and vegetables. And I'm discovering that people are amazingly great. Okay, Michael Jordan was the greatest of all time, in my opinion, but it wasn't because he smoked cigars. It wasn't because he ate fried chicken. It certainly wasn't because of the blue underwear. And 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 would he have been better on fruits and vegetables? And the answer is absolutely, definitely yes. Healthier athletes always outperform the equally talented, less healthy athletes. Healthier chess players always outperform the equally talented but less healthy chess players. And the same thing is going to go through to every aspect of greatness, whether it's the shot put, the discus, the javelin, the runners, the great thinkers, the people suffering with Alzheimer's. It's always going to be access to greatness is outside of the comfort zone. And when people step outside that comfort zone, be willing to say, oh, I wonder what would happen if I ate just fruits and vegetables, the health foods, the thing that everybody tells me eat more fruits and vegetables. I wonder what would happen if I did what they said. And then they find out that there's greatness within them. For me, that's just a tickle and a half, man. That is exciting stuff. When I see people really, as the expression goes, firing on every cylinder, and we find out how brilliant people really are, because people are brilliant. It's just been shielded and masked and dumbed down, and I get a big thrill helping people realize their fullest potential.
Transitioning there, Doug, how can people work with you? Well, first of all, you've got some amazing books. Do you recommend people start with your books or reach out to you directly? What would be the first step?
I think it's sort of the same question. Which end of the swimming pool? Do you dive in the deep end or do you tiptoe in from the shallow end? Different people do different things. A lot of people like going straight to the source. I'm readily available. I offer a free 15-minute consultation to anybody who wants it. They can just reach out to me through my website, foodandsport.com. It's the word food, the letter N like Nancy, my sister, and then the word sport, foodandsport.com. It's 10 letters. If you write the word and, I have no idea where that will take you. It's just food and sport. And there's a funny reason behind that. Back in the day, AOL only allowed a maximum of 10 letters.
Wow.
Oh, you couldn't have an email address with more than 10 letters. So I just carried it through to my website. So I'm happy for when people reach out to me. They can get my books, Grain Damage, Perpetual Health. The 80-10-10 diet is sort of the classic. Prevention and care of athletic injuries. I've written a bunch of books on human performance and greatness. And you can start with the books. Some people, there's audio books. They're out in a bunch of different languages for people who want to read. A lot of people just like going straight to the source, and I'm perfectly happy with that. For people with wanting to reverse osteoporosis, wanting to reverse Alzheimer's, wanting to reverse MS, wanting to reach greatness in athletic performance, physique management, weight management. This stuff for me it's a real treat watching people get well. Suffering needlessly just seems a waste.
Agreed. So we've covered so many different topics. How would you summarize what we talked about?
Fruits and vegetables allow me the opportunity of being my greatest self.
I love it.
Yes, it was outside my comfort zone too. I didn't want to become a raw fooder. That wasn't my intention. Certainly, I thought I'd arrived when I went vegetarian, for goodness sakes, let alone vegan and then raw vegan and then low-fat raw vegan. But I couldn't argue with the results. I just couldn't argue with the results. So I'm gonna take full responsibility and tell everyone to go to health, and with a TH on the end of that. Go to health, and again encourage everybody, raise the bar in such a way that They just rise to the highest possible standard. And let's look at what's stopping that from happening. What could possibly... I'm arguing for everyone's greatness, and anybody who wants to argue for their own smallness, I think they'll see that that doesn't make any sense.
No.
Let's be great, each and every one of us.
I love that vision. Can people find you on social media too?
A little bit. I'm on social media. I've got like 800 YouTube videos. I've got a bunch of Instagram. I still do live stuff Instagram. I'm training coaches to do what I do. And I run a few events a year. My premier event is in Bali every November. And then the fast is down in Costa Rica for the month of February. But you find me on Instagram pretty easy. YouTube is easy. I don't play a lot of social media, but I've just been around for a while, so it keeps accumulating.
It makes sense. Doug Graham, thank you so much for joining us today.
Gosh, thanks for the platform. I mean, I'm honored to be here.
Wow. Okay. And with that, peace and plants.